really excited to have this deep dive with you in my first my domain spot of the podcast. So it's gonna be cool because we're gonna be having this like live on video on like Spotify, but it's also gonna be the audio experience. So cool. Super stoked. So yeah, I guess we could start off. I'm just curious because you have the brand. It seems like you're living like an awesome lifestyle. You have like a whole bunch of cool stuff at your place. When we talk at the gym about cold plunge stuff, sauna. I'm just like really interested in your lifestyle and how you went from wherever you started out to now having this awesome brand, and just want to hear the story.
Cool. Yeah, so I'm not really somebody who ties myself to my work, but I feel like that's kind of how these things start out. So prior to doing what I'm doing now, I was a catastrophe adjuster, and most people don't know what that is, but essentially it's like whenever a big storm hits, like if you ever turn on the news and you see like fires in California or like a hurricane hitting Florida, there's a certain number of homes and buildings that get damaged in that situation, and they don't have enough guys on the ground that live in that area to assess all that damage. So they have independent adjusters like me who go out there and look at these buildings and say, hey, it's going to cost this much to repair.
Okay.
So that's kind of like what my previous life was in a nutshell. For about 12 years straight, I was just on the road going from one catastrophe to the next. And it was like my whole life was just essentially work in disaster areas.
Right. Okay.
Which, at the time that's what I really wanted to do. And I didn't go to college for that. It's something that I pursued afterwards, because it was a field that was paid on performance, and it was something that required some athletic ability, a ton of mental ability, and then, just being in uncomfortable situations.
Yeah. So you always kind of like, you had to be in a place like mentally, physically to be able to push yourself and to perform, right? So it's like a high performing lifestyle in a way.
Yeah, it's high performing, and it's like, it's not high performing with like a bunch of things to assist you in performance. It's high performance in chaos. So like, for example, when I worked Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico in 2017, 2018, dude, when that hit that island, it was a Cat 5 storm that rolled across the whole thing without slowing down, and there was no power, no water, no internet. Hospitals are down. There's like no cops, and all these independent adjusting firms are trying to figure out how to get adjusters like me over to the island and start assessing this damage. And nobody wants to go. And so the guys that deploy us, one of them called me and said, hey, we're sending CAT adjusters over to the island. Do you want to go? None of my peers, none of the people who worked around me wanted to take a shot at it, because you had no information coming out of Puerto Rico. And I got the call, and I had already been thinking about that storm, and I was like, you know what? I don't know how I'm going to solve this problem, but I'm going to go. And so in that situation, dude, I flew over there, and it was the craziest flight I've ever taken, because it's literally like a regular sized plane. You have like 3 rows in the center and then like 3 rows on the side. So it probably seats like 400 people. There was like 17 guys on that plane.
Yeah.
The whole plane was empty, but me and these guys, and it was me as a catastrophe adjuster and like 17 linemen. And that was it. And so you're like flying into Puerto Rico at night. It's totally dark. You're looking around the plane like, dude, it straight up felt like a scary movie. Because there ain't nobody else on this fucking plane. And as you're coming into that island, dude, the whole fucking thing is dark.
Yeah.
The whole place is dark, and you can see fires where people are, they don't have lights anymore. So now they create light with fire.
You're literally getting dropped in a hot zone.
You're literally getting dropped in a hot zone. And you land there, dude, and it's like all street lights are down. Like there's just cables and wire and chaos everywhere. And like you get there and you have to start performing like immediately, because these people aren't going to get back into a good position until you go out there and you assess the damage to their home and you get a check written to those folks. So like landing in that spot, it's not like I get to have like 8 hours of sleep and wake up and do my meditation and my breath work, and then I get cold and hot and all this. None of that. Yeah. It's literally like drop in, get about 3 hours of sleep, try to check into where you're going to stay. Your cell phones don't work, no internet, like nothing. All resources that you're used to is gone, and you start to get a shitload of pressure from the people that are depending on you to go look at their buildings. So it's like it's high performance in the most chaotic environment.
Yeah, it really sounds so. Like, I'm really curious, like, what that build-up looks like to that role. It's like, that's like the middle of the story, and then, like, you know, the movie's like, okay, let's go back to the beginning. Yeah. So, like, how did you get into that? Like, how did you become the person to try and do that role?
To do that?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess it started kind of in college. I went to University of Texas at Austin down the street. You know, I was in the business school there, and I was getting my degree in management information systems. And my senior year, fall semester, I ended up going and studying abroad in Australia.
Okay.
And you know, before that, I had been just going through college like everybody else does. Like, I'm getting good grades, I'm doing some partying, but like I'm going towards a job and a career that was solely based on the average starting salary.
Yeah.
You know, I honestly think college is a little bit fucked up, the way that they pitch, you know, what you're going to do the next 20 years to these 18 and 19-year-olds. And for me, dude, I was sitting there freshman year, and they're like, hey, average starting salary for a management information systems guy is $68,500, and finance guys are $67,000, and they go through it, and you're like, well, you know, I didn't come from shit, so I'm just making this decision based on money. I'm going to choose the highest one. Right. And so I chose a degree that really didn't align with me and what I wanted to do.
Yeah, I feel like that's super common. It's like 18-year-old, like...
It's super common. Yeah, it's super common, and honestly, I don't think you really know what you want to be doing until... Well, I don't know, that always is changing, right? But definitely not until, for me, I was at least 23, 24, and then I felt like I started to kind of understand who I was. But so I went to Australia, and I was fall semester senior year in college. And when I was in Australia, I did a ton of surfing, a ton of traveling, and I kind of just had this epiphany that, like, man, I'm making this decision that's gonna basically determine the path for me for the next 10 or 15 years, just based on a dollar amount. And so when I came back, I decided I wasn't gonna. You know, I'm going to finish and get my degree so I can have that piece of paper, whatever that's worth. But I'm not going to pursue management information systems. And instead, I'm going to go this catastrophe adjuster route. Because my brother was already in it. He had started during Hurricane Katrina. And I knew what he did. He told me about the lifestyle. He's like, look, I travel around. Work is very difficult, but we get paid pretty well. We get to help people out. And so... getting into the last couple of months of my college years, I was like, you know what? I want to go do that. I don't know how I'm going to go do that, but I'm going to go do that. And there's no college degree you can get for this job.
Right.
So I went right into construction after college. And, you know, to be honest with you, it kind of sucked. Because you go to one of the elite business schools on the planet, and the MIS program at that time was like number 3. You graduate, and literally at the time when I came back from Australia, I didn't have any place to live, and I blew all my money traveling. So I came back. I was living in a shed in one of my prior roommates' backyard. I called him when I was coming back from Australia. I said, dude, I don't have anywhere to live. Like, I got another semester in college. You know, do you guys got an extra room at the house? He's like, well, you know, we don't have any rooms per se, but there is a shed in the backyard. And I'm like, well, I'll send my brother over there. He's working in Austin right now. He'll take a look at it. My brother goes and looks at it. His name is Roy.
Yeah.
Roy calls me back. He goes, well, you know, it's a shed. You know, it does technically have 4 walls and a roof. It's a little leaned over. There's no power, no water going to the shed, no HVAC or any of that. but I think you could live in there.
Yeah.
And so, dude, that's how I rode out the last semester of my college. Was literally living in a shed in the backyard, doing construction, trying to go towards this goal of eventually being an independent catastrophe adjuster.
Yeah, dude, that sounds like such a pivot, because it's like you're going from like a stable and like secure route, right? Probably something your parents would like, your friends would approve of, and then like you go black sheep. Okay, I'm just gonna do totally different. We'll pivot, right? I'm gonna go against the grain.
Yeah.
Right. So how was, like, did you like question yourself at all that time? Were you confident, or were you pretty certain you were like that you needed to do something else?
Man, I don't know if I would say I was confident, but I did have a knowing. I had something in here that was like, man, this desk job thing that these guys are trying to pitch me is really not my jam, and I want to do this thing so bad that like I'm willing to become like dirt poor to fucking get there.
Yeah, you're willing to sacrifice. You're willing to like put in the work, do the energy.
Yeah, totally willing to sacrifice. And you never know how hard the path's gonna be. Like you have an idea of like, well, I think this is gonna be challenging for a little bit until I get my shot. But the truth is, like, man, it was way more difficult than I thought to get there, because it's not like after I graduated college, I did construction and immediately like got into an adjuster role and got to pursue this path that I wanted to do. It's like after college, I went from living in a shed to renting a back house at a place, doing this construction job, really, really getting super lean on money, not making a whole lot.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't come from anything.
Yeah.
I mean, my parents, like, dude, we grew up on like welfare and food stamps and shit.
Yeah.
Like, my mom's a Colombian immigrant, and my dad is like a hippie surfer dude, and so they're great parents. I respect the shit out of them, but financially, we just weren't that successful.
Right.
And so like when I'm in the struggle, especially during my early years, like, dude, there ain't nothing to fall back on.
Yeah.
Like straight up, like this is like playing trapeze with no nets. Like that's been my whole life. And so when people are like, man, I don't know what's gonna happen, like if this goes out or I lose this job, but like their parents have a lot of success and a financial net underneath them, bro, I never had that.
Yeah.
In fact, like when I went to college, I don't know what the forum's called now, but it used to be called the FAFSA, which is like the financial whatever form. So you get like possibly scholarships or whatever. When I filled that out, dude, my dad made $18,000 a year.
Yeah.
When I'm going to college, and so there was times in college where literally like I said, I respect the shit out of my dad. There's so many like good attributes of that guy, but financially, man, he just had a rough go.
Yeah.
And there was times in college where I was doing like phase 1 medical studies to send my dad money. Like people in college are like, oh man, I wonder like, you know, if I'm gonna stop getting an allowance. I'm like, dude, I was sending my parents cash. Like, and I'm doing hard shit to do that.
Yeah. So you knew you had that wall behind you. There's nothing there to back you.
Yeah. You know? That's it, dude. There's no reserve parachute.
And then, but you were also giving back to your parents at the same time.
Yeah, and I'm doing whatever I can because we're all kind of struggling. And so, yeah, so after college, I just knew I was going to go do this catastrophe work. But you can't get your foot in the door until you have experience. And so it's kind of this chicken and egg thing. It's like, how do you get experience if you can't get your foot in the door? And it's like, well, it's like the door won't open unless you have experience. So it's this whole chicken and egg thing. And to be honest, there's not a lot of young guys like my age in their 20s in this field, because you're going and you're dealing with somebody who just went through a disaster. They might have had a tornado come through and just level their whole fucking house.
Oh yeah.
And if you're 21, 22, 23 years old and you go walk up on something that's a $500,000 loss and somebody might have like not survived it, like professionally, emotionally, mentally, like you may not have the firepower to deal with that.
Yeah.
So,
dude, that was a lot. How old were you when you first started experiencing that?
So when I graduated, I did the construction thing for about 6 months. Eventually that company goes out of business and I lose a job. I didn't have a way to make money quick at that point, and so I went back to what I was doing during college, which is phase 1 medical studies, which is like, I don't know if you ever heard of this shit, but there's a company here in town that does it. It's called PPD, and basically like they test out pharmaceutical drugs on like monkeys and shit, and then they go to phase 1. And phase 1 is like the first time they're testing it on humans. I'm the phase 1 guy. And so like, dude, I'm somebody who like really values health, but I couldn't find a way to make a certain amount of money that fast. And any way faster than this. This would be like you go in for 3 weekends and you stay all weekend, and they test new drugs on you, and then you're getting like 17 blood draws a day, and at the end of 3 weekends, if you survive, it's like $3,000.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Super lucrative if you don't mind putting your body at risk.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to put your body at risk, and it's like, it's a lot of blood draws, and man, you fucking feel weird, and you volunteer to go sit inside of, I don't want to call it like prison, but it's like captivity. Like, you don't go anywhere else.
It's like probably a controlled space. Like they have to, have very strict precautions for like whatever they're doing to you.
Yeah, for the testing of the drugs. So like, after I finished the construction thing, I was back at zero. Truck's about to get repoed. Like all my bills are due. Of course, I have massive student loan debts, and I'm below zero. Like there's zero. Yeah. I'm like down here where you're starting to get like red envelopes in the mail that they're saying like they're coming to pick up your shit.
Yeah.
I'm at that level, and so I'm like, well, I guess I'm gonna go do a medical study just to get a few $1,000, and then get ready to do my next thing until I can get deployed on an event as an adjuster, because I already had a license.
Yeah.
I just wasn't getting an opportunity. So that was one of my lowest moments I think I ever had, because it's like when you graduate from college, especially like a really good school, you have all these expectations.
Yeah.
And like maybe some friends around you, like they now have a job and stability and shit. And for me, it's like I'm going from shed to van to like construction to unemployed to zero to less than zero.
Yeah.
And now
it's
I'm
like,
doing.
You probably felt like, the folks around you kind of were like a straight line, and you're just kind of like doing the wave, you're like all over the place. Kind of like how you see like how life really like pans out. It's not like a straight line. It's not linear. It's just a whole different chaotic map of where you're going. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so, like I said before, I wasn't confident at that point. I just knew I wanted to get to this thing.
Yeah.
And so I jumped into a medical study, and so I was 22 years old at that point with a college degree, and I'm in there doing a medical study. That's one of the hardest things I ever did. It was 3 weeks long. So you check into the facility on a Monday. You don't come out for 3 weeks, and they're testing like a new cholesterol drug on you, which turns out to be like, out of all the drugs they tested, like I would go for cholesterol and high blood pressure because I knew they weren't like the craziest fucking drugs. So I check in, it's a 3-week study. They want to see how this cholesterol medicine is going to react whenever you have a 5,000 calorie diet.
Oh.
It's fucking gnarly. So like, you think that's cool. You're like, oh dope, okay, so we just take this medicine and like, we just get to eat a bunch of food and stuff, which sounds great. But dude, like it's as this started to progress, it turned into like that show like Man vs. Food. You know what I mean? Where the dude would sit down and like eat a whole shit ton. That's how it was for us. And so like you'd wake up in the morning and you would dose and you would get a blood draw. And like, dude, I still have tracks on my arm because they were doing like 17 blood draws a day. You dose in the morning, you get a blood draw, 1 minute after, 2 minutes after, 5 minute, 10 minute, 30 minute, 1 hour, 2 hour, 4 hour, 6 hour, and it just goes like that through the day.
Yeah.
First meal, it's like 6 eggs, like 8 pieces of bacon, 3 pieces of sausage, pancakes and shit, and you crush it. You're like, yeah, I can do this, man, no big deal. Boom, boom, boom. Get to lunch. Lunch is like a plate of spaghetti that's like this fucking big, and dude, I'm 150 pounds. Like, and I'm looking at that, I'm like, okay, cool, yeah, I can do it. We'll get through that spaghetti, no problem. Dude, there's a mid snack and then dinner. Dinner starts to get tough, man. And the first few days, you get through it. It's like not a big deal. But as the days were progressing, dude started to fall off.
It's a lot.
And if you don't, it's crazy. If you don't finish that meal, you're out of the study. And instead of getting paid like $4,000, they pay you like $16 a day. So
it's a huge drop off.
Ridiculous drop off.
So bad. You're like, might as well. Like,
you might as well. But dude, towards the end, like, guys just couldn't do it. Guys were like,
what was so hard about it? Like, why were they?
Well, it's just hard to eat that much food. You're not exercising at all. You can't exercise.
You go to the bathroom, like
You go to the bathroom, yeah. But it's just an enormous amount of food, and you're already feeling very weird taking some new medicine, and you're also like doing these constant blood draws, and your sleep's fucked up.
Yeah,
and you're inside a facility. Like, you don't even leave the facility.
No windows, nothing.
Well, there's windows. You can see the outside world, but you're just a lab rat.
Yeah, you're just trapped. Yeah.
Yeah. So, man, as I was going through that study, I think it was one of the lowest moments of my whole life.
Yeah.
Because, dude, I'm in there, I'm wearing, like, you know, your scrubs or whatever, and like I said, I have a college degree from a good school. I'm trying to pursue my dream. It's not working, so right now I'm doing this very difficult thing. And you can't take phones in there.
Yeah.
So there's one payphone that everybody gets to use within the facility, all the other lab rats. And there's always a line there, dude. It's straight up, it's kind of like prison. Like, there's a line for the phone. And I got to use the phone one day, and I called my brother, and I'm like, hey, what's up, man? And he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I'm in a study right now. And he's like, oh, shit.
Yeah, like he knew you were...
He knew I was in there,
He knew the deal, yeah.
He knew the deal. He knew I was struggling. And I was like, what are you up to? And he is doing the career that I wanted to do. He's a successful independent adjuster. He was working in Tulsa, Oklahoma, just absolutely crushing it, making like $2,000 a day. Smashing.
I can imagine Tulsa was Oklahoma in general, tornadoes, all that.
Yeah, tornadoes, hail. That was a hailstorm he was working. Okay. But I just remember being on the phone with him and him telling me about kind of what they're doing. And, you know, he doesn't want to rub it in and make me feel like shit even more than I already feel.
Yeah.
But he's like, dude, yeah, things are going great out here. Like, eventually you're going to get your shot, man. And I just remember telling him, like, dude, this is not my time right now, but eventually my time is going to come. And when my time comes, like, I'm going to go at this fucking dream so hard that...
That probably helps so much, being like a deep low, and then like having your brother like pretty much influence your motivation, like, because on the other side you're really talking to somebody who's doing what you're doing. You're in there for that reason. You're just like, things are tough. I'm a lab rat, but you know what? Like, it's not like jail, but like you had your call, like you had support, like you had your brother there.
Yeah.
Be a part of that journey with you. Do you think?
I don't know if he would. I wouldn't say he's a part of the journey.
Not a part, but he was somewhere there in the background. He was available to be accessed.
He could give me a little bit of support. But yeah, I told him right there on the phone, like, dude, this is one of the toughest things I've ever done, and this moment right now has essentially like started a nuclear reactor inside of me that just doesn't turn off. Like, that struggle and the struggle I had before then, like, all that, like, I turned that shit that some people would consider like trauma and bad things, instead of like trying to break it down later on and be like, oh man, instead I turned that shit into fuel. And I was like, dude, this shit is hard. When I get my shot, dude, I'm gonna blow everybody away in this fucking field. And that's what eventually happened.
Do you feel like, because you've been through so much in life and these scenarios, do you feel like it's interesting to like connect with folks who are not as maybe risk averse, or are just kind of like went like the seemingly linear path? Like, what's your experience with like people in terms of like, you know, you're talking to buddies or acquaintances and you hear like hardships.
Yeah.
Like, does that affect you at all? Like, what do you think about when you just run across random random folks or?
So like hardships as in, for them it might be like, instead of like having to do medical studies and send your parents money in college, they're dealing with like parents' expectations.
I'll give you an example. I have like a similar history. Like, I was homeless a couple times, trying to like do startup businesses, and I was living in scenarios like that, but at the same time I had like friends and like they were going to college, and it was just like kind of like not like a double life, but I had clearly hardships and I didn't have that back either, and I didn't have that support. And so for me, like I felt that separation of like I am really grinding, like I am doing the squiggly life cycle that you went through. So I'm just curious how you perceived like your environment, going through like using the fuel, going through that, seeing the people around you.
So yeah, I don't really judge anybody for whatever their path is, and if they came from a bloodline of success where like their parents got them and maybe they had mentors and stuff around them that helped them, and then for them their struggle was like, hey, I didn't get like a Yukon Denali as my first car. Like maybe that's their struggle. I don't know what their struggle is, but like for me, my first car was a fucking 1986 Toyota Tercel with roll down windows, dude. I'd roll up to high school doing this shit, roll down the back window, reaching back, rolling all this shit down. So I don't know what their struggle is. But I heard a quote, I can't remember who it was, somebody smarter than me, said that like the worst thing that ever happened to somebody is the worst thing that ever happened to somebody. So if their worst thing is that they didn't get a Yukon Denali, and that's my terrible. Worst thing is like I had to do phase 1 medical studies and shit that I can't talk about for money to send my dad cash. Like, it's hard to compare the two hardships, but when somebody tells me they went through their struggle, like, I try to sympathize with them and not, like, shit on their discomfort. And be like, hey, man, that's not that hard. But at the same time, like, I don't want to do that to young people, but if I'm hanging out with older people, like, I say older people, I'm 36 years old. If you're a grown man and you're sitting across from me and you're, 25, 30, whatever, and you feel like you know yourself and you're still complaining about something that was a struggle, I will be the guy to point this out and say, hey, dude, like, straight up, you're not a fucking kid anymore. Like, you had a lot of advantages.
Yeah.
Listen to some of these other stories, like this, and this. And I'm not saying mine's the hardest. It's definitely not. I know people have had harder.
It's like that story. It's like there's always somebody who wishes they were in your position. Like the person has a car, who has a bike. The person who's walking wishes that they had a bike. Somebody who doesn't have legs wishes that they did have legs. It's kind of like that effect, right?
Yeah. So I don't want to judge people on their struggle and try to be like a trauma competition and who's got the hardest shit. But at the same time, like, I am very adamant about people turning whatever it is, whatever trauma that's behind them, turning that into fuel. Yeah. Rather than having that as a crutch.
I feel like so far talking to you, like there's a solid theme of like dealing with like high intensity conflict, like drop zone, like trauma. It's, you live life in like very high intensity, maybe emotionally, mentally, like, so there's like you sounds like you built yourself to be very solid, very like unmovable in a lot of scenarios, like you needed to be,
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't want to go back too much to like where I grew up, but like I said before, my parents weren't super successful financially. But my mom's a super hard worker from Colombia who had like 4 jobs as we were growing up, just like put food on the table. And my dad is like this surfer guy with no fucking fear that like was surfing pipeline in the 60s and shit. And like from them too, I feel like I got a lot of great fundamentals. And that's not like money management fundamentals. That's like no fear from my dad and hard work from my mom. I feel like that software got kind of plugged into me early on, and we by no means had a perfect childhood. I mean, my parents split up, they were fighting every night, like drugs, alcohol, prison, like fuck, dude, we grew up in a rough ass spot. But through that, I think it kind of hardwired me early on, where I don't tend to judge people, and I'm grateful for my opportunities. And when I get a shot at something, I go as hard as I can. So, dude, I don't know if that's biological or environment or what it is, but I feel like now I know myself better than I ever have, and I don't feel like my days are complete unless like I work my fucking ass off.
Yeah. Do you think you would feel complete if you didn't have those experiences growing up to shape your mindset?
Yeah, I think so. In fact, I talked to my dad recently and told him that, like, man, even though our childhood wasn't perfect, we had a lot of violence and poverty and all kinds of shit behind us. Even though that wasn't perfect, like, I'm so grateful that we grew up with nothing. Like, I told him, I said, man, I don't know how you reflect back on your life, but like, for me, when we were 15 years old, 14 going into year 15, my dad and I, we were living together. My mom and my sister were living together, so family separated. My brother's off somewhere. Our house is getting foreclosed on, and we didn't have any money, and shit was getting all fucked up. So my dad's like, "Hey, do you want to move?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Where do you want to move to?" I was like, "Well, shit, Florida seems cool." And so, like, literally on a whim, like, finally we're able to sell the house before the bank took it from us. We sold all the shit that we owned in the whole house in a garage sale for $500. And we packed up in a piece of shit 1978 Mercedes diesel with no air conditioning and a fucking dash mounted fan. So like, me and my dad driving to Florida when I'm 15 years old, and it just goes from super hot to hot and blowing. And this fucking fan would oscillate like this, and we're just in August just moving to Florida with no fucking money.
Yeah.
And we get there, dude, and we lived in some rough ass spots. We didn't have furniture for like 6 months. We were just straight living on the floor. And I tell my dad that, like, those moments where we didn't have a whole lot, and it was a real struggle, and like, when people talk about hunger now, it's like, it's almost like dudes will like listen to a podcast or read a book and try to like get hunger from there. But like, dude, when you come from a rough ass spot or you didn't have a whole lot, like, hunger is like actual hunger, not like mindset hunger or whatever. Like, you actually
there's a big difference. It's like, one's mental and one's like guttural.
One's like fucking primal, biological,
one's
for
like,
real.
Yeah, one's like, I need to survive. Yeah. Versus like, oh, this is a nice to have hunger.
Yeah.
Right. I don't feel it, but like, that guy's got it. Kevin's got it. I'm gonna think about it. I'm gonna become hungry mentally.
Yeah, it's very hard, I think, to develop that. For us, it was just it just came with the environment, dude. And so like, I told my dad the other day, I'm like, man, I'm so grateful for the way we grew up. Of not having a whole lot and having instability and chaos. Because that shaped me into where I'm at now. And now when I fly to Puerto Rico and I'm in a super, super challenging spot, I've already been exposed to this, at a young age. And I've already seen poverty, and I've seen like incarceration, all this other shit behind me. So when I'm exposed to it now, it's not like a shock factor. I'm just like, okay,
so now
I can operate here.
Now you're rolling in your dream. So now you're doing it, and you're a little bit more entrepreneurial now. It sounds like. So tell me a little bit about like some of the experiences. Like, what is there like an intense thing that comes to mind that you've been dropped at?
Well, yeah, I mean,
one that you can share.
One I can share,
I'm not sure how like the confidentiality works.
Well, obviously I wouldn't use anybody's name. But yeah, working that storm in particular, that Puerto Rico storm, was a really intense one because when you're there after a Cat 5 hurricane hits an island like that, little shit that people experience here in America that give them safety nets and comfort that you may not think about isn't over there.
It's not, yeah.
Like hospitals, for example. So like when we're dropped in there, like there's no hospitals. Everything's down. So like if you're measuring a building, you're on top of it, and you step through a hole and cut your leg on some rebar, that's something that can be solved easily here, right now.
Right.
Over there, that could get infected and get like gangrene, and you could lose your fucking leg.
You can stop it.
So like there's like little shit over here that you're like, oh well, if something goes bad, like if I get robbed because I'm in some really rough neighborhood, because over there's like third world poverty. That like we have poverty here, but it's not the same as some of the poverty in other places of the world, and they have legit third world poverty over there. So like if you get robbed over there, you're like, you know, in the back of your mind you would think like, oh, I'll just call the cops. Well, not really, because the entire fucking police force is just trying to protect their homes, and there are no cops. So that was a difficult storm. But the thing that stands out to me on that, there's a lot of moments, but when I first got there, I was going and getting a car that I was going to use, and I talked to the guy, and he goes, "Hey, are you here to help us on this island?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "What do you do?" I said, "I'm an adjuster." And he goes, "Okay, man, well, I really appreciate you coming. We need all the help we can get." And just that one comment there was like fucking fuel for me. I was like, dude, you know what? These people need all the help they can get. They're super grateful. Like, I'm gonna go as hard as I can. And when I go as hard as I can at work, like, I don't know what other people consider hard work, but like 40 hours, 60 hours, that's not hard work to me. Hard work to me is like, I don't do shit but work. Like, I wake up at 6 a.m. and I work until 12 a.m. every day. No matter what, I eat my food. My food gets eaten on the road, like in between appointments. There's no like social media, like let me post a TikTok live or some shit like that. There ain't none of that. Like we're doing 80 to 100 hour weeks every week, no matter what. There's no gym or like happy hours. Like,
no LA. There's no LA there.
No, you're not going to Applebee's.
That's where we met. We're in LA.
Yeah.
No LA.
No, there's none of that. Like, you're like going 100 hours a week as hard as you can, trying to solve all these problems for all these people that need help. So that's kind of my definition of hard work. And you don't do a 100-hour week like 1 week. You do it like week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, and you run that as long as you possibly can, which usually leads to burnout. Because even somebody like me, like, dude, I'm a pretty hard-working guy, but like,
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, your ethic is like something to aspire to. You know, I see that and I'm like, man, like, I want to do that, right? But will my body be able to sustain that week after week? Yeah,
it's intense, man. And I don't think that's absolutely necessary. I think there's probably a more moderate road to that career and that lifestyle. But for me, I didn't come from anything. I saw people that needed help. I'm in a job that's paid on performance. So literally, I don't answer phone calls from any friends or family. Like I go this way. I don't check social media. I'm just like mission focused on getting this done. And because of that, you know, in that particular field, I was like one of the top guys. At doing that thing. And I know that because like I rose through the ranks of catastrophe adjusters just on performance, not because I knew somebody or I was related to somebody who owns a company, just through performance. And then I found later on down the road that like owners of the company would reach out to me and I have their cell phone number, and they would be like, I see what you're doing on this storm. This is like, we have like the normal guys in our group are you know, doing this amount of work, and then we have high level performers here, and then there's this one fucking dot over here that's an outlier that they're like, I don't know what that guy's doing, but that guy is doing it different than everybody else. And that was kind of the bar that I set for myself. And that's how I approach everything now.
I feel like I'm getting this sense, like, even early on, like when you first like told me about like this is something like I wanted to pivot to. It felt like it touched like some kind of like purpose in your soul, and like that's one of the drivers. Like, do you think like you find like deep sense of purpose? You said like earlier, you're like, oh well, this guy said like thanks for being here. Like, do you derive like a deep sense of purpose in the work you do? I would feel like it'd be hard not to if you're putting in all that work and you're literally high performing with it. It's not just, you're not operating at a scarcity anymore because it pays well.
Yeah.
So like you really, it sounds like you really love being there and supporting and
I did. That. Yeah, I definitely found purpose in that. And at that time, between the ages of basically 22 and 33, 34, that was my purpose. Like I feel so lucky to have found that career and that path. And at the time, that was the perfect thing for me, and I went as hard as I could at it. Yeah. And that's a great feeling. And then what eventually happened was I was working with my fiance at that time. She was a civil engineer, and she quit her job. We were together around 23. She knew that I was on a paid-on-performance job. She knew the way that I operated. She had a civil engineer background, and she said, "Hey, I'd like to work with you. We could be a two-person team and just really kick ass." Yeah. And so me and that girl worked together for about 8 or 9 years. And we worked ridiculously hard and blew past everybody. And I honestly kind of feel sorry for what I put her through, because my level of intensity is ridiculous. Like, there would be no, like, when the day would start, there wouldn't be, and this is my fault. Like, I didn't do this well. I wouldn't be like, "Hey babe, like, how's your day going? You want to get something to eat?" I'd be like, "Hey, the report on the ground claim, we need that like in 32 minutes, and I saw this come in here, and what's going on with that QCR report over there?" And so, dude, I was just like business, like trying to get as much done. Laser focus and trying to get everything out of this machine I could. So that, to get back to your point, that was my path and that was my purpose. And she was along with me for that ride. And what ended up happening is we worked Hurricane Harvey, which was the hardest storm we'd ever worked in 2017, working all those floodplains in Houston. And then it got off and we're basically home for about a week. And then I go work this Puerto Rico storm I keep talking about. Yeah. And I went from Hurricane Harvey working 6 weeks straight, 100-hour weeks, to taking a week off and then going right back into the chaos. And man, I put my career above that relationship. And at the end of that Puerto Rico storm, we were like 3 months in, and it killed our whole relationship. Yeah. And so, everything we had built up to that point, we owned property, we had this adjuster business, we had some assets, of course we had our relationship. All those things were there, and because of this sort of like one track, laser focus, like I'm gonna do this as best as it can possibly be done mindset that I had, I basically killed that relationship, which I'm not proud of, but it is the way it is. And I think that experience and that career went the way it was supposed to go. And me and that girl, we're still great friends today. Yeah. Which is a really cool thing to say. Yeah. But I learned through that like my level of like hyper focus and performance may not be the right level for everybody, and definitely not bring your spouse or wife or fiance into that mix, because it's just like the way I want to go is not the way that everybody wants to go. Yeah, or if you do, make sure that you're doing a little bit of a balancing act with that person. And yeah. I'm pretty sure you thought about how you could have done things differently, but it would have been the same because you still had that same drive. It would have been the same way, right? Dude, honestly, I think back and I'm like, could I have done it different? I don't think I could have done it different, right. Because I had to like learn the lessons. I mean, I read books, I listen to podcasts, I do what everybody else does, but it's very hard to really like know something until you experience it.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of guys around me. I have essentially two different friends group. I got one friends group that's like 20s, 30s-year-old guys, and I have a whole separate friends group that are like 50s and 60s, like CEOs and guys that run companies and shit. Totally opposite. This older, wiser crew over here was seeing what I was doing, and they're like, look, man, you are performing exceptionally well at your job. We see what you're doing, but you're going to burn that relationship to the ground if you keep doing this. And I was like, man, you guys don't know me. Like, hey, I know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm just going to keep going like this and this and this. And it was just like non-stop, go as hard as I could. And then eventually I just blew that spaceship up, is what happened. And like I said, guys were telling me, they were saying, yo, you're going to fuck this up. And I didn't understand it until I did it.
Yeah. Do you feel like that situation of it kind of blowing up, that like expanding your peripheral a little bit from laser focus?
It did. Yeah, it did a shitload because I put money, path, purpose, and job career above personal relationships at that time.
Yeah.
And man, like when I was a catastrophe adjuster, dude, I missed weddings and funerals and birthdays, and I fucking spent Thanksgiving at the same Luby's cafeteria in El Paso 3 years in a row. And bro, you can't feed Luby's cafeteria steaks to dogs. Like, it's that shitty. And so, dude, I did that so long.
See, everybody listening, don't go to Luby's cafeteria.
Don't go there for Thanksgiving unless you have to, and you'd be like fucking lonely as shit, like me, sitting there in El Paso by yourself. But the blowing up of that spaceship was really important for me and my development because, you know, I did learn that like the health of your relationships around you, especially the people that are the closest to you, is, in my opinion, the ultimate measurement of success. Fuck the money, man. Fuck the money and shit. Like, I thought, hey, if I make $200,000, I'm gonna be happy. Made $200,000, wasn't happy. I'm not gonna say wasn't happy, but just like maybe not satisfied.
Okay.
And I was like, well, maybe I need to make $300,000. Make $300,000.
Yeah.
Same thing up here, thinking, well, fuck that. No, that didn't quite do it. 400, 500. So like, I'm blowing through these financial goals with me and my partner at that time. And I kept thinking if I made more money, I was gonna be happy. And I was doing this at the expense of my relationship. And not just that relationship, but all the other relationships around me, like friends and shit. They wouldn't see me for like a year. Like, dude, I get called on a storm and I leave in February and I wouldn't come back until like November and shit.
Do they understand the kind of life? I mean, I would think they'd understand it a little bit, right? That you'd have to go out and it's a totally different scenario that they're used to.
Yeah.
Common person has like their friend Joe Smith down the road and they can drive to their buddy's place whenever they want.
And that's they understood, but what inevitably happens, and I think probably like pro athletes and other people experience this too, is like your friends group gets whittled down to like just your core.
Yeah.
And it's like you got like 5 or 10 like homies that are in your foxhole, and like, fuck, dude, if I don't hang out with this person for like 18 months and I come off like a super long deployment and now we go have beers, like it's gonna be fine. Yeah. But the guys that are on the peripheral that I didn't have a chance to really like nurture that relationship or whatever, it just goes away because they're doing their own thing and I'm doing my thing and I'm just not available. So to get back to that point, like after that big storm in Puerto Rico, me and my ex-fiance separate, split all our assets.
Yeah.
And it was a very big shift for me where I realized that like this whole game ain't about money and this whole game's not just about going as hard as you can, and you need to value the people around you. And there's more to life than just than just pursuing your career. And so from there, I came back to Austin. I set up my own consulting firm here, and I said, you know what, I'm gonna like try to hit this work-life balance thing people have been telling me about for 13 years. And I'm like,
let's see what this is.
I'm gonna see what this is. I'm gonna like work for like 8 hours or 10 hours in a day, and then like go have a beer with somebody and see how that feels, because I'm not used to that. Yeah. And so I came back, I set up my own consulting company here, and I did that for a few years. And me and my ex-fiance, like I said, because of the way we ended our relationship, we're still friends to this day.
Yeah.
And then I ended up meeting a new girl about 18 months ago, and her name's Heather, and she's fucking phenomenal.
Yeah.
And she saw the amount of work I was doing in my adjuster business, and she goes, you know, this is great now, but I don't think this is like the path for you going forward. Mm-hmm. And she was very encouraging with me, saying, hey, you know, eventually like something's gonna come. Mm-hmm. And then one day about 18 months ago, a guy walks in my house, and I said, hey man, you know, what's up? You know, I'm Kevin, blah, blah, blah. We start talking about like work, sports, that kind of thing. I said, so like, what do you do for work, man? Which I hate starting. Yeah. I hate starting the conversation with, what do you do for work? Because I don't base my identity on my work. But either way, that came up. I asked this guy, I said, yo, so what do you do? He said, I got a supplement company. I looked at the guy and I was like, I was like, you could just do that? And he's like, yeah, you could just do that. And I'm like, okay, you know what? That's not a problem I've ever even thought about solving. But like, I've been so hyper-focused on fitness, mental and athletic performance for so long, like in my job, that like, I know what works for me. And so I'm going to start diving into this idea. And so like, when that guy said that, my new girl Heather had told me like, hey, you're gonna start a company, you're gonna lead a team. We don't know what it is yet, but it's gonna happen. That was sitting back there, and then this guy came in and said that, and it just like the fire started, and I was like, this is what I'm gonna do.
Wow.
And so since that time, like, I've been developing this fasted athlete idea, and pushing as hard as I can towards that thing with almost the same level of intensity as my previous career.
But enough that Heather can handle.
I don't really have her super involved in it. And so that's good. And I told her, I said, hey, you don't want to work with me. Because I'm just like, I'm on it. I'm like a hunting dog. I'm like, I see it. You show me where the fucking rabbit is. I'm going to go as fast as I can.
You look away for a second, you're out of there.
I'm out. So, so now I'm developing this new idea, and, I'm not here to like pitch or sell or anything, but like what I gathered through my journey, leading up to this point was like, I need to make sure this machine can operate as best as it can, so I can provide the most value I can possibly provide. And then send support to people who need it. Straight up. Because dude, I don't like, if I made $1 million in a year or $2 million, like, dude, my lifestyle ain't gonna change that much.
Right. I'm just gonna catch you in the sauna.
Yeah, you're just gonna catch me in the sauna. Like, I'm gonna be able to work out, like, do some podcasts, hang out with some cool people, drink a beer every now and then. It's not gonna change that much. But if I can provide enough value in whatever project that I'm pursuing now, like, my dad, for example, like I said, he didn't do that well financially. Me and the other siblings, we're like, yo, Dad, you don't have a retirement fund, but tell you what, you don't have to work anymore. You go hang out in Puerto Rico, you get a view of the ocean, and dude, just sit there and fish, do whatever you want to do. And so for me, when I'm pursuing projects now, I'm doing like this and this so I can help him out. And that feeling that you get of supporting people, not just financially, but like, fuck, dude, emotionally, like, if I just call my mom on a Tuesday afternoon, I'm like, hey mom, how you doing? Like, that type of support is like, dude, it makes a huge impact on people's lives. And now almost all my motivation is rooted in like what I can do to help somebody else.
You give back. And that's always where the meat of fuel comes from, right? Especially as a guy, especially as a dude who, if you vibe with like your masculinity, right? It's like, that you're in servitude, you're giving back to the people you love, whether it's Heather, your family, your parents, the people that you're being dropped in on. You always kind of feel that calling internally, right?
100%, dude. I think I have like two fuel sources now. Like I told you, I use the trauma fuel source over here. That's like nuclear reactor of like, okay, I remember when child protection services were at the door, and I remember welfare checks, and I remember like phase 1 medical studies and other dark shit I had to do for cash. Like that's one of my fuel sources. But now I have this other kind of like more clean burning fuel source that's not just like built on turning trauma into motivation. Now I have this other fuel source that's probably more like pure and like love and shit, where I'm like, dude, I'm getting to impact these people's lives in a positive way, and like I get to help these people out. And so when I'm in the gym and I'm doing pull-ups, and I'm like, okay, today like I'm gonna do 100 pull-ups. It's like, okay, when I'm at like pull-up number 60, my fucking arms are on fire, and I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I'm looking at other guys that are like doing Snapchat and shit on their phone, and they're like so comfortable and shit, and I'm like sweating, and I'm like, I got fucking 40 more to go, and like I have energy to do that because of my fuel sources I have, and the big one now is supporting other people, and that's the whole message behind my brand now. Is like this fast athlete thing, dude. It's a direct reflection of me and how I think, and our whole thing is like build yourself, lift your team, straight up. That's what this whole motherfucker is about. So when other guys are in the gym and they're getting tired because they're chasing a six pack, I'm like, dude, I'm not chasing a fucking six pack. Yeah. Like I'm trying to generate so I can help other people. Yeah. Especially those who don't have a whole lot.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's a totally different mindset. It's like I never routinely. I always went to the gym, but I was like always an on and off kind of guy. Yeah. But then like since like the beginning of last year, I went every day except for I'm Jewish, so I do Shabbos. So Saturdays is like a day for rest, right? Yeah. But all other 6 days, I'm in the gym, an hour and a half, and I'm doing it. What I noticed was I think I ended up switching into that mode where I'm working out, I'm not really on my phone, like I have my routine, and then I see other people at the gym and they're on their phones, and I'm just like the first thing that comes to mind, I'm like, that's not why we're here. Yeah. Like that's like the first thing. I'm like, we're not here to relax. Like if you want to go on your phone, like go home. Like that's when you're having beers, like casual. But you're doing work. Like and there's like it's a different mode, right? It's like knowing that you have to switch into something else because there's a purpose behind it. If there's no purpose, then like that's why they go on the phone. I feel like they don't have a strong enough why. They don't have a strong enough why. It's like why they're at the gym or whatever they do. Yeah. And you can kind of see that all throughout, right? You probably more from you than me, but live a little longer than me. But you probably see just like that guy's why isn't strong enough, or the bar isn't there with him or her or whatever. And I've always noticed that, and I'm just like that inspires me because I'm like if I catch myself on the phone and I see somebody else on the phone at the gym, like throw that in my bag. Like let's get back into it.
and dude, it's like I'm not as time poor as I used to be. Like I used to feel like I was very time poor because I was putting in so many hours a week as a catastrophe adjuster, but I'm not as time poor now. I mean, running this business takes a shitload of time. What do you mean by time poor? Time poor would be like I'm just putting so much of my weekly time into my work project that I don't have a lot of time for like social gatherings or even in the gym or whatever. So I don't consider myself as time poor as I used to be. But when I see guys in the gym like texting and fuck, dude, when I see a guy scrolling Instagram in the sauna, I'm just like, my mind is blown. I can't even believe they're doing that. But if you're sitting there on Instagram scrolling through shit as you're like waiting to do your next set, like that's disrespectful of your own time. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I don't have right now, and even in my previous life, like I don't have the time to be sitting there wasting it. Like so for me, when I get in the gym, it's 45 minutes to an hour, and I'm pushing what I call like a jiu-jitsu pace. Like I roll jiu-jitsu. I've been in and out of jiu-jitsu gyms for like I started rolling in 2003. So it's been a long time. And there's been breaks in there as well. But like when I get in the gym, dude, I'm not frantically running between things, but like, dude, I'm getting my push-ups and immediately moving to the next thing, and immediately moving to the next. And it's not fast movements, dude. It's slow, controlled, but I'm not giving myself a break.
Right.
And I do think that produces great results, and
also,
I get a lot of shit done.
You're training yourself to be nimble with your breaks. You're lean on the pause, and it's like more of a circuit.
Yeah.
Right. And then like that, if you do that enough, then that trains you in like non-gym environments. That life's a circuit. Like, you know, if you're having a pause, why are you having a pause? Like, why are you taking this break? Is there a reason? If there's not a reason, okay, let's keep going.
Yeah, dude, exactly. And I only weight train 3 days a week. Like, guys think I'm a gym guy. I am not a fucking gym guy, dude. I'm in there 3 days a week, and the other days I'm doing sports. And so the way I train in the gym is so I can do, you know, I train in the gym so I can do sports better. You know what I mean? So like, I don't want to get tired if I'm like rolling 10 rounds of jujitsu. Like, I expect myself to just throttle through the whole fucking thing. And if you're in the gym and you're doing like 2 reps and then like sitting there for like a while and like, if you're doing that, dude, and you go, you know, whatever it is, fuck, dude, it could be like intense pickleball, tennis, football, whatever it is your sport. Like, jiu-jitsu is just the one that comes to my mind. It's like, when you're 5 or 6 minutes into a roll and you've already rolled like 4 other matches, and you're, you know, I'm 155, maybe I'm rolling with somebody who's 175, or like we're both brown belts, we're like pushing real hard. When that guy's like doing an arm drag on you and you're about to get choked out, like, there's no breaks. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
you can't scroll on your Instagram when you're about to get choked out.
No, and if you ran out of gas, like, you're just gonna get fucking tapped.
Yeah.
So I train, and I don't do as much jiu-jitsu as I used to do, but I lift and weight train in the gym so I can get through deep rounds of that thing. Or if I'm going to go surf, and like surfing's been a big part of my life, and I haven't surfed in like 6 months or a year, and I go to Puerto Rico and it's double overhead. Like, if you're caught inside and you're about to get pushed up against a reef, like, and you've been paddling for, you know, fucking 25 minutes straight, and it's just one wave after another, like, the ocean is not going to give you a break.
No.
You're gonna get fucking drowned. Yeah. So like, I put myself in that kind of situation before, and dude, I gotta have the horsepower. Like, I gotta have the fuel to push through that, because there's certain situations where like the fucking earth or the ocean or a fucking dude or somebody's not gonna give you a break.
I think that's such a big theme today. The thought of there is no mercy really in life, and you know, with this society that's kind of being built now, especially for guys, like, you know, people are scrolling at the gym like there is mercy, and people are doing these things like they don't need to be prepared, and they're all out on the water without just chilling until that really big tsunami wave comes, and they don't realize that that's a potential. And you know, I mean, you can speak for this more than I've never left the country. Hopefully that changes this year, but you know what it's like when, you know, life has no mercy for folks, yourself included, and it's like, because you know that's a possibility, that, you know, and I wish I had that. Like, I've had that to some degree in my life, but I feel like you and the role that you have being dropped in whatever, you know, heated zone that you're going in, like, you know that clearly. It's like you land and it's like almost like being like serving in the military or something. It's like you know, like, it's just me, and it's like life is not merciful. It's like it's gonna eat you if you don't. It's gonna swallow you up if you don't prepare, if you don't do your due diligence.
Yeah, 100%. But now, and I think we talked about this in the sauna the other day, that I think there's a healthy level of pushing yourself. Yeah. And occasionally you push yourself real hard. But I don't know if you have to push yourself just incredibly hard every day. Yeah. Like, I look at the Goggins of the world, and I'm like, that fucking guy goes hard. That dude goes so hard, and everybody, me included, we respect the shit out of that. I don't know if you have to go that hard. Right. And like Jocko, you know, he fucking trains every day. And I'm like, fuck, dude, these guys are still, you know, weight training 7 days a week and going to jiu-jitsu 5-6 days a week, and there's like no breaks. Dude, I love it. I respect it, and sometimes I'm like that. But as I get older, I think there's a certain amount of healthy discomfort you can do.
Yeah.
And I don't think you have to run 100 miles a week.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm not trying to disregard anybody's methods, but I'm just talking for the average dude.
There's a funny video on Instagram about Goggins where, I don't know if you've seen this. It's like Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson. They get to the moon, right?
Oh yeah.
And then somehow they just, because he took a ship on this cartoon, and then they see Goggins just running on the moon side. Yeah. He goes like, I'm heading to Mars. Yeah. And so when I think extreme, I think of this really funny clip of like, oh, we finally got to the moon, guys. And like Goggins is already there, and he's going to Mars somehow. And he's running with no helmet. Like, that's the joke. It's like so extreme. Yeah. And it's like, is that really viable for the 80% of folks out there? Because there's like that rule, right? The 80-20. It's like 80%. It's like, as long, I feel like 80% of people, just on average, they just did like that extra push. Yeah. If they realize that life is not merciful, like that would be enough. They would be able to differentiate, and then just that little more would benefit them.
Dude, 100%.
Everybody needs to be that 20%.
Dude, well, Goggins is like the fraction of the 1%. Yeah. And a friend of mine just interviewed him recently and was like, yo, dude, that guy's more intense than you think. Like, when you sit across the table from him, you're like, that motherfucker guy is intense. Yeah. But I think we got to have guys like that out there. Got to. Because that's like the upper echelon of the half of a fraction of percent. But I also think we need to have people like us that are pushing like hard stuff in certain doses, and also moderation, and making sure you don't just fucking break this machine. Because if you go too hard, man, like a lot of injuries are caused through overwork. That's how I get hurt a lot. And that's why the past few years I've throttled back, where like when I'm in the gym, it's a continuous push for about 45 minutes or an hour. But man, I'll tell you, if I'm doing squats and my knee hurts, like I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah, you're done.
I'm done. I'm going to move to something else. I'm going to find a different way to challenge myself, because I have guys ask me all the time. They're like, dude, how do you get in shape like that? And I'm like, man, honestly, like,
you really never have setbacks.
Yeah,
you're careful.
Yeah, because I'm careful. I'm like, dude, consistency.
Keep the consistency of what you're doing. When, like, me and Yehuda do that. When we're working out and I say, dude, my shoulder can't do, like, I'm done. Can't do shoulders anymore. We have like 3 other types of workouts for shoulders. I'm like, can't do it. And he's like, yep, okay, no worries. Because then that keeps me in the game the next day, and then the next day. Yep. And it keeps my body in that flow state of staying active.
And dude, if you can stay consistent and have a moderately clean diet, and I'll just speak for males here because I don't know nothing about girls, but for males, dude, moderately clean diet, you're fairly consistent. Like, maybe you try some intermittent fasting, that works for me. If that's for you, cool. But like, you definitely have to be brutally honest with yourself. Mm-hmm. And if you're sitting there in the gym and you're just giving yourself an excuse to not do another set because you're kind of like tired or whatever, you just don't want to do it, that's not what we're talking about. No. We're talking about like occasionally, like, I'll overuse this right shoulder, or like somebody just did a fucking nasty Kimura on me on Tuesday, and then like I go into bench and like I can feel a sharp pain right here. And if I got that, then I'm moving to something else. But as long as you are brutally honest with yourself, and you know the difference between like a slight overuse injury and just fucking laziness. Those are 2 separate things. But I think sometimes dudes will do the laziness thing to be like, well, I'm just trying to be moderate. I'm like, I don't know if that's moderate.
You can do more, right? Yeah. That's kind of like that Goggins mentality. It's like, don't make excuses, right?
That dude's running bone on bone, so like, whatever. But I think guys see Goggins and Jocko and Tim Kennedy and these fucking warriors out there, and they see that, and it might be such a far goal for them that they almost can't even relate. Like, they like it, they feel the motivation, but they're like, dude, I'm not gonna run 100 miles a week every week.
And so that's part of my podcast goal, right? Is like interviewing folks who they're like, I don't know if I'll ever get Goggins on my podcast, but I don't know if I want him on my podcast. Right? But my point is, like, I'd rather interview people who like they're like normal everyday guys. They're your next door neighbor. They're your gym friend in the sauna, and it's like they're living lives at a certain level, and you have access. And like, why not listen to somebody who's like living this day-to-day life, and they're not Jocko, or they're not Goggins. They're like, there's somebody you can actually relate to, like, and it's that relatability, and I feel like making the podcast center around folks like that will instill like, this is possible. This guy's lower down. This guy's not going to Mars. He's not like Goggins. He's not jogging to Mars. He's had this timeline, and he's doing what he's doing. He's doing it really well, and that's relatable, because I work hard too, and I have that motivation. Like, I think this is possible for me, and it's so much easier to connect to that. And it's intimidating when you listen to these bigger dudes, because it's on the extreme side. It's like the 1% and under, right? Yeah. And so being in that 20%, it's a lot more tangible. Like, from that 80 to segue into that 20 is a lot easier than to being into that 80 going to that 1. It's so far, and people get lost in that journey because they don't break it down. But listening to you and how you've broken it down in your timeline, it's like, that's attainable.
It's totally attainable.
And it's a switch, and it's like, there's a lot of things involved, right? I mean, you've had your experiences, but I feel like listening to it now, like, just from my perspective, I don't know what other folks are going to be listening and think about, but I'm like, dude, it's inspiring, because you went from A and you ended up in B, and then to C, and now like you're really kind of like branching out into a different, mode of life in terms of like business and like what your focus is. And, it's not only you experience these things, but like sharing how you've learned and sharing how you've grown from those things, and that, you didn't allow those things to be, setbacks or excuses. And I think that's part of the battle, is like, as you grow and evolve, like, it gets so much easier to blame things, and like the excuses become multiple because you're doing more, right? Yeah. And you could probably speak to this a lot. It's like the more you're leveling up, it becomes easier to look down. There's just more to look down on for excuses, right? Than it is like if you're just on the base level, right? There's less excuses. Okay, cool, I'm just gonna be on Instagram. But when you have that why and you have that purpose, and you're literally fighting your body, you're going against what your body wants to do, which is comfort. And it's like, there's so many more excuses when you're actually moving faster and you're doing more. A lot more excuses become visible. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, they do, but I tend to surround myself with like no excuse, no bullshit type of guys. And so
that's the environment.
They do not. Yeah. My boys do not put up with that shit. Like, if I'm sitting there on the beach, I'm open, I'm like, man, I don't know if I'm gonna get back out there. They're like, man, yeah, so who is it that's actually holding you back right now? Can we go find that guy? Yeah. Like, is that dude?
I don't know.
We can go kick that guy's ass. I'm like, I ask dudes that question too. I'm like, because they'll be like, well, yeah, I can't because of this and this. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, whose fault is that? We need to go identify this person. And then eventually they sit there. And when you say some shit like that to somebody, and you say, man, who is the guy that's holding you back? We need to find him.
We need to find out. We need to search and destroy.
And then you don't say shit after that. Yeah. You just sit there in silence. About 10 seconds will roll, and the guys will be like, fuck, yeah, no, it's me, dude. I'm being a bitch right now. Like, and so you just make guys eat their own shit and then, like, kill all their excuses. And and then they move through it.
Yeah, it's like fast and athlete, I don't know.
I don't know. I'm like,
who's that? Who's that guy telling you that? Yeah.
So yeah, dude, the excuses and blame and all that other shit, like, dude, I don't like it. I don't love that, and the further I go into this life, the more I encounter people that have done impressive shit that crushes any excuse you have. Like, for example, my dad, he went to prison. And when he got out of prison, he has a felony on his record. And as we were growing up, he always, he would tell me, like, I heard a lot of his stories about how he went to prison. Yeah. And I know that there was like certain jobs he couldn't get, certain places we couldn't live. There was like this fucking hindrance over us. And that sucks. And I, obviously I've never been to prison, so I don't know anything about it. But it seemed like it held him back from achieving what he wanted to achieve. And part of that is real. As a felon, as somebody who has a felony, you can't do everything you want to do, which is fucked up. And he went to prison for drugs, which is like a whole nother topic. Then I meet my new girlfriend. We've been together about 1.5 years now. And I could just see something inside this girl that was different than everybody else I had met.
Yeah.
And like, man, I don't date a lot of people. And like, if I get in a relationship, it's like I'm fucking ride or die. And my last one, I was almost 10 years. And then I met this girl, Heather, and she didn't really tell me a whole lot about her story, but I felt there was something else in there. I'm like, man, there is something different about this person. And then one night, we're just kind of hanging out talking, and she finally opened up, and she'd gone to prison. And she did the same amount of time that my dad did for almost the same crime.
Wow.
She was dealing drugs, and my dad kind of the same thing. But for her, she came from a very poor environment. She grew up in even more poverty than I did. And they had welfare and she was in the hood doing currency exchanges on food stamps, which people don't even know that's a fucking thing until you meet somebody like this and they go, no, this is how you do it. Food stamps, you have $500 worth of food stamps. This person over here has $500 worth of food stamps. They're willing to trade you that $500 in food stamps for $200 cash. And so like, she's working currency exchange in the fucking projects. Like that's how she grew up. And she grew up single parent. Her mom's, her mom is not well, and her mom is doing her best to make things work for her. Her dad is in prison, and it's just her and her mom. And it's like, she didn't have a lot of opportunities. And so when you grow up and you don't have opportunities like that, fuck, dude, call it drug dealer and call it entrepreneurship. I didn't know what the fuck to call it, but dude, these people were in tough environments, and that's where she was. And so the only way for her to send support to her mom and, to survive was to get into this game. And that's what she did. And eventually she got busted. And Heather went to prison. And that's fucking crazy. Like, that most people we encounter, they think they have hard things and they blame shit on this and this and this. And I'm like, well, I know some people who have harder situations than what you have. And so she went to jail for about 1.5 years. And I'm telling you the story because I want you to understand like the mindset. When she got out, she had the same record as my dad. My dad, unfortunately, saw it as a hindrance and said, you know what, he's an awesome dude. Got a lot of shit to be proud of, but he told me multiple times, he said, I can't do this because of this. I can't do this job because I have this on my record. I go, okay, that's what I understood my whole life. And then I meet this girl, and she finally opens up to me, and she said, I've been to prison too. I go, wow, that's fucking amazing. She said, when I got out of prison, I realized I got a felony on my record. I can't go to college and do the same shit as all these other guys. Instead, what I have to do is I have to create my success. There is no other way. So she turned the same situation from being like a hindrance to a fucking fire and said, there is no other way for me to do what I want to do other than being an entrepreneur, starting my own fucking business. And that's what she did.
Two different mindsets.
A whole different mindset. Whole different mindset. And like one of these days, I'm going to sit my girl down with my pops, and they're going to exchange stories about what it's like on the inside, and hopefully kind of change what his mindset was on what you can and can't do, given the cards that you're given. Because she got out of prison, and right away was like, I'm going to figure out how to be a fucking entrepreneur. I'm going to figure out how to do this, and this. And she started seeing the people that were successful around her, and she went from being a waitress to a bartender to flipping motorcycles to flipping cars, then flipping properties. And now she has a company where she flips land, and she absolutely smashes, crushes. And when people see her, they go, that girl's running on a different kind of firepower than what I'm running on. And nobody knows because she doesn't talk about it. Like a ton of her friends don't know that she's done time. And like, I sense that shit right away. And she has now created an amazing, like, she's building a real estate empire that like makes other dudes look fucking stupid.
Yeah.
And all that is literally rooted in some really shitty situation that happened to her that could have been an excuse, that could have been something that she always blamed and said, oh, well, I can't do this because of this. So the next time the dude's at the gym or a guy didn't get a job and he's like, oh man, you know, I can't do that because of that. I'm like, dude, I know people who have way more fucked up situations than you that turn into positive.
I think that's the gem of this podcast. The thought that you're literally one excuse away from an empire.
Yeah.
You're one excuse.
Yeah.
Like, there's going to be one. You write down all the excuses if you can even fathom your own awareness to get there.
Yeah.
But then one of those excuses is going to be the one that if you overcome it, it's going to unlock the gates.
Yeah. Or just fully fucking own it and figure out where the positive is. Because, dude, for every situation that's fucked up out there, dude, whether it's like your parents or somebody died or somebody went to prison or like your friend had a drug habit, whatever the fuck it is, there is some value in there.
Yeah.
There's some value. And for me, I get most of my best lessons from I hate to say it, dark shit that I've encountered. And now I'm getting better at watching other people's lessons and going, wow, that's fucking real hard what they did. And they turned this pile of shit into something incredible. Like, it's like a good metaphor I think about when somebody takes a fucked up situation and flips it and makes it into a positive is like over in Sweden. They're now like figuring out how to take trash and landfill and burn that to create energy.
Yeah.
And it's like, we are taking trash that other people think is worth nothing or less than nothing and turning it into a fucking positive.
Yeah. I think more people, myself included, could definitely do that. What's my trash? How can I convert this into energy?
That's right.
Because I think too many people, like, that's the issue with the 80-20. It's like 80%. They don't know that they have all this stuff that they could be converting to something that they actually want.
Yeah.
They have the excuses, they have the trap, they have all the energy to do something, whatever those dreams are. Mm-hmm. But they're having that challenge converting, or even not even aware that they have that trash converting company inside them. Yes. Like, everybody has the potential to take their stuff and to convert it.
Yeah, everybody's got a nuclear reactor in there. You just got to figure out how to turn that bitch on. That's what you got to do. That's
incredible. I love that insight. So look, we could talk forever.
We could talk forever.
We could talk forever, but just go over Fasted Athlete for a little bit. I know you don't want to prop it up too much, but you know, tell us a little Fasted Athlete. You know, 10 podcast and anything you want people to know before you know we set sail. Until next time. There's definitely gonna be a part 2.
Yeah. So I think I touched on a little bit on how, you know, the most important thing with me and this idea and this company is that I want people to be bettering themselves so they can support those around them. And whether that's like your friends or your family or a stranger on the street, or you going and volunteering at the Boys and Girls Club, whatever it is, like rooting your motivation and your why in supporting other people. And I don't know what other people think when I say something like that, but that's not a fucking marketing strategy. Like, that's legit how I feel. That's how I feel, and I'm not saying other people have to feel that way, but that's how I built this thing. And so I want, even more important than like somebody like trying out this product, like I would rather people kind of experiment and start playing with that mindset and see where they go. That's the most important thing for me in this company. But aside from that, like, part of the reason why this formula is what it is, which it's a minimalistic formula for performance, both athletically and mentally. I saw most of the companies in the supplement world pushing more ingredients and more products and more supplement, and being like, hey, you got to take like this much here, and like a pre-workout and a mid-post workout and a post-post, and I'm like, what? And I look at these websites, and there'd be supplement companies with like fucking 40 products on there, and I'm like, yo, are y'all taking all this? Like, is the CEO of this company waking up every day and taking 12 pills in the morning? I think not.
No.
I
Most
think
people
not.
don't, unless you're really dedicated.
Yeah, so I saw that and I said, you know what? As far as performance goes, there's only a handful of shit that work, because I went through my supplement cabinet and literally would try something for a few weeks and be brutally honest. Be like, do I feel different? Do I look different? Is my energy better? Is my absorption better? Like, am I stronger in the gym? Am I lean? Like, am I getting this out of this? If I'm not, I'm fucking throwing it away. I'm throwing that shit in the trash, because we're not doing daily blood tests. So it's not like when somebody's like, hey, this has got like this many omegas and this much vitamin K and this and this and this. I'm like, great. I see that product has that. Are you doing a blood test before you took it and after you took it and 30 days after? Are you continuously measuring your levels? Okay. If you're not,
like most people,
which is 99% of people, the not Ben Greenfields of the world, I'm like, if you're not doing that, the only way you can measure if a product or a food or a lifestyle or a supplement is actually working is how you feel.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the only metric for us regular humans right now.
Yeah.
So if I don't feel it, if I don't have a change in my energy, if my focus is not better, if I'm not fucking stronger, and I don't feel like this fucking Ferrari is moving the way it should be moving, I'm throwing it away.
Yeah.
That got me down to basically 4 ingredients, and that's creatine, cordyceps, lion's mane, and a slow release caffeine. That's it. And so I put that formula together about a year and a half, year ago or so, and started experimenting. And immediately, when I created samples, I gave it to a handful of my boys, and they're the same like no bullshit type of guys as I was talking before, who legit would call me out on any of my shit and be like, "Yo, this doesn't work." They were like, one of my guys, he's like, "Dude, I used to take Adderall, don't take it anymore. This is all the firepower I need."
Really?
Another guy's like, "Man, I wasn't about supplements, and now I started taking yours, and dude, I'm getting to the gym now.
Really?
My fucking wife is stoked."
Yeah, you're coming for Alpha Brain and Joe Rogan. You're coming
Hey.
after him.
Whatever works for you. If you guys like that shit, cool.
Yeah.
For me, it didn't really work, and I can't have.
You tried Alpha Brain.
I've tried fucking basically every nootropic and pre-workout out there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kept my ingredient list super simple because I think you have to have effective doses of things.
That's the thing. When I got into taking vitamins, that was like the first research I found, is that those once a days for men, those ingredients are so low across the board. They don't even because your body only absorbs a percentage of it.
Yeah.
And if you don't take enough, it's dismal.
Yeah, and so either you're getting a fraction of a percent of something that is effective, and so your dose is inadequate, or the cheat code for a lot of these companies that are pushing a product that like increases focus or energy or whatever it does. If it's performance based, the cheat code for the past 5 or 10 years has been just put a fuckload of vitamin B in there.
Yeah.
Like all the B vitamins, and go 5-hour energy style on this shit. And I don't know what the rules are on that, but dude, you'll turn the label around on some of them, and it'll be like 12,000% your daily value of vitamin B12. And I'm looking at that going, dude, when else in fucking history has a human been able to encounter 12,000%? And whether you agree with the daily value numbers or not, either way, it seems like 12,000% is a lot of something. So you're either getting inadequate doses or hero doses of shit that I don't think you're supposed to be taking that much of.
Yeah.
And then I think with creatine, it's very misunderstood. Some people think creatine is like a gym guy supplement, and they kind of associate it with like every time you see a creatine ad, it's like some bodybuilder and he's on a bench and he's just
I don't take creatine. I've been told, give it a try, but I just haven't done the research to know if it's any different from like a bodybuilder,
It's actually the most proven performance enhancing supplement ever, dude. There's just been like hundreds of studies showing the efficacy of of creatine, not just for like athletic performance, but mental performance as well.
Really?
Like it's actually a nootropic, and So I think it's misunderstood, and I think the other problem with it is that the dosage is too high in most creatine products. I think they're encouraging 5-gram servings, and they want you to do like a loading phase. And the truth is, if you take too much creatine, it doesn't absorb well if you have too big of a dose, and actually can cause like digestive issues.
Okay.
So some people have tried that in the past and had a bad experience.
Right.
So with us, we actually did a low moderate dose. It's got like 1.5 grams of creatine, which is substantially less than what you find in most products. And it's super effective, and you get none of those like weird absorption things. Instead, you just like slowly ramp up.
It's in moderation. Right?
It's a moderate level.
Yeah, there's no risk for you to overdose.
No. Yeah, and you can't really overdose. It's just if you took 10 grams of creatine and you've never taken it before, you probably shit yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, straight up, like that's what happens if you take too much. So I designed this to be a supplement that you can take in the morning. If you're a coffee person, dope.
Yeah.
If you're a person who does intermittent fasting like me, fucking dope. If you don't, if you're like keto, paleo, vegan, whatever you're into, that's fine. It can complement those lifestyles, but you just take 2-3 capsules in the morning, and it's not like it's not like a 5-hour energy or like a pre-workout where you just like your fucking heart gets like ramped up and you're throttled for 2 hours and there's a crash.
Yeah.
It's slow. Like it's like the fucking train starts. Like I get up at about 6 a.m. and I'm doing like yoga, meditation, kind of moving around and shit. By like 7 a.m. ish, I'm gonna have a cup of coffee and I'm gonna have 3 capsules of this, and that fucking train starts, dude. And it just goes all day long at a consistent pace. There's no ups and downs, spikes, like changes in heart rate. You're just crushing, and it doesn't matter if you guys sit down for a podcast or you're gonna pitch a hedge fund or you're gonna go run a marathon. Like all those things in my eyes require the same thing. It's like energy, focus, and strength. Yeah. That's what you're looking for. And that's what Lift does.
Yeah. It's a slow ramp up, and it just only gets better throughout the day.
Yeah, all day, and then like I said, it's not too much, it's not too little, and then you get towards the evening, 7-8 o'clock. There's a slow come down because you don't want to be up all fucking day and all night. So, this is now the only supplement that I take. I'm about less is more, and as this company progresses, I've had a couple people who want to be investors that are like, hey, what other products are you going to offer? For me, like, honestly, I get almost all my nutrients from food. Straight up. So I'm supplementing with this. We may launch a protein supplement at one point or another because some people aren't hitting their protein levels that they need to hit. And then possibly some electrolytes for guys like us who sauna and work out outside. I think those 2 or 3 is going to be about all that we do because, like I said, I have to stick to my core values of like, I'm a minimalist when it comes to supplements. Like I just want to take 1 or 2. I don't want to go travel. Dude, I fucking traveled one time to Zion with a friend, and he busted out his like, I don't know what the fuck it was, Animal Pack or Primal Pack or something like that. And for a week, dude, he had like a bag of vitamins. So it's like this fucking big, dude. There's like 60 of them. And I'm like, man, Colt, do you think that's like good for you, or you're absorbing any of that? It seems like you just take those and have to piss a bunch. So for me, I'm sticking to the minimalist thing where like we have one product now, we might offer a couple other later on, but that's it. Like, dude, I'm not trying to sell you on something like that doesn't work. Like, you take it, you either feel it or you fucking hit us back. We're just gonna give you money back. But so far the reviews have been outstanding, and not just for athletes like us, but my sister, for example, she was diagnosed with lupus like 10 years ago, and that's had a very negative effect on her health. And she wasn't taking any supplements. She didn't feel like they worked for her. If you have lupus, they're like, yo, stay away from caffeine. She decided she was going to try to lift, and within a month, she lost 10 pounds. And it's like, she's a teacher and also owns a roofing company, and like she's busy and has a kid and shit. She normally would get home and be tired, just like not have that spark and that energy to go to the gym, and just a little bit of boost. Like, this is not like a weight loss thing. but it does give you the boost that you need. And she gets home, and now she's like,
That's
I'm
a
gonna get to the gym.
healthy boost.
And so now she dropped 10 pounds in a month, and I was like totally not expecting that, and I'm super fired up about like those type of results for regular people.
Yeah.
Like my athletes and shit, we're gonna be like, yeah, fuck yeah, dude, let's go. But like, I want the regular people to get like a low dose of creatine and some of these functional mushrooms that might be the catalyst for them to get to the gym.
Yeah. Give them that little push in the right direction.
Yeah.
And maybe they'll make the switch.
Yeah.
Into to high performer mindset, right?
I think they will.
Yeah.
I hope they will.
It's like caution, you will not use your phone at the gym after using this supplement.
Caution, you may produce 20% more work than you normally do.
Yeah, caution, your lifestyle may get a little bit better.
Yeah, caution, you may have more energy where when your mom calls and she's not in a good mood, instead of you being lazy and kind of mentally checking out of that conversation, you're going to fucking be there for that conversation. You're going to be like, Mom, hey, I get it, like, this fine. Yeah. And you help people work through problems. And
Caution may make more friends.
May
keep in your relationships.
Caution, you may have some better jokes. I don't know.
Awesome. Well, hey man, thanks, Kev. Before you go, is there anything that you want everybody to know listening in, the future folks who are going to lead the world, whatever capacity? What advice would you have?
Oof.
Boil it down to one.
If I'm boiling it down to one, I'm gonna say it's what we touched on earlier, dude. Find the trauma, find the shit that's behind you. Instead of fucking crying about that, man, turn that trash into fuel, because everybody has got some kind of nuclear reactor in them. They just got to figure out how to turn that bitch on.
Yeah, sweet. All right, man. Well, hey, thanks for coming through, and we'll definitely have you on again.
My guy.
All right.
Yeah.